kids, but when I was a horny teenager, this was my dream. Cruising down Route 66 with these two guys, Martin Milner and George Maharis. Watch the road. Today we're having a reunion with some of my very favorite TV men. Also with us are Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. and Kooky himself, Ed Burns from 77 Sunset Strip, and that adorable Johnny Crawford from The Rifleman. You know, Marty, it looks like we're awfully low on gas.
Trust me, we're fine.
Yeah, but you know, we haven't stopped since Albuquerque, and I'm telling you, we're going to run out of gas.
Vicki, there's a reason this Corvette only has 2 seats.
Oh, it's very nice.
Thanks, Marty.
I hope we see you in a moment.
Typical men. They wouldn't stop and ask for directions either.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Marty Milner and George Maharis.
Walk this way. Walk this way.
You look quite nice.
Where are you? Either one of you guys have any bug floss?
You were a happy driver.
It's tough sitting back there in the back of that thing. Did you guys ever do that? Did you ever run out of gas on Route 66?
I don't think so, did we?
Yeah, we did.
We had a lot of other mechanical problems, but I don't think we ever ran out of gas.
You know what was amazing to me in reading about this show is that you guys shot this whole show on the road. Has anybody ever done that before or since?
No.
Well, why would they?
It was very difficult.
That had to be a nightmare.
In 4 years, we were in the studio 5 days.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it was great.
So did you? It was great.
Oh, yeah, it's great. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, George is right.
It's great.
So were you, now, how did you do it? Did you like start? Did you go across? Literally go across country?
We'd start out in the early season, like July or the end of June, in the Pacific Northwest, like Oregon or Washington or Idaho or someplace. Work our way across the Midwest to maybe Chicago, then go into the New England states. Then, as it began to get cold, we'd go down the eastern seaboard and wind up in Florida, and then work our way back through Texas and trying to get good weather and finish the season in some place like Arizona where there was sunshine.
Yeah, but the sea, it was always like all year long, and we were always about 5 days ahead of airtime.
And then did you ever get? How do you have a day off when you're
You don't.
You're on the road?
We worked 13 days out of 14.
Right.
Every other Sunday we took
We made
off.
like 39 shows a year.
Which was, boy, that was then and.
But they did also make a few interesting mistakes. I remember we went once from Louisiana to Kanab, Utah, or Sheridan, Montana, to shoot at night.
Oh, good.
And it was the
Who
only,
was in charge of that budget?
it was the only place in the country where the nights were 5 hours long.
Yeah, right.
Remember? And then we went from there. We went from there all the way to Chicago to film inside a hotel. Remember?
Yeah, in a hotel, and they got a freebie deal at the O'Hare Inn. So all day long we were filming with airplanes going back and forth.
Perfect.
It was a disaster.
Wait, stop. We have to stop for sound.
But it was great fun. It was great fun.
How do you have a personal life doing that?
Well, my wife and kids traveled with us a lot of the time.
Now, when were you married?
I was married in 1957.
And Route 66 started?
In 59. And we had one child, and by the time we finished it, we were expecting our 4th. And so they were babies.
Oh, well, we knew what you were doing on your one day off.
I did get a day off. And they were babies, so they could travel. They weren't in school.
Vicki,
oh, but still.
The lady he's talking about is Judy. That's
yes,
I think she's right there.
Yes.
All right, where is Judy?
Right, Judy's right there.
Judy gets some sort of a medal of honor for hanging in
That's
through
true.
all that.
That's true.
So 4 kids in 5 years.
Yeah. And, you know, traveled with them.
How?
Well, by car. Everybody else would go in a plane.
Trucks.
And we
truckloads of
we
diapers.
had a little exactly. We had a little van. We had the predecessor of the modern van, this little underpowered van, and we had an ironing board and a playpen and dirty diapers on top. And it was the days before disposable diapers, I might add. I look at my grandson now and all the things that are available for him, these wonderful disposable things, and we didn't have any of that
But
stuff.
I had a fast 12-cylinder Corvette black.
George was on another road.
Oh, you had a black van.
And I had a brother who was still is, a year older than I was, who looked just like me. And he used to get into the towns before I did. And everybody thought he was or me. And by the time I got there, all the freebies were gone.
All the little actor freebies.
No. The people would go in and say, oh, you're just pick up the check.
Right.
Oh, everything. By the time I got
He'd take
there,
all your little job perks
that's
from
right.
you.
That's it.
But you did have the vet.
Oh, it was great.
So now, did you do diapers
Yes.
on your day off?
Actually, not if we were filming, but on the road, where we would pull into, you know, some town at 7 o'clock at night, and Judy would have to get the kids fed, and so it was usually my job to find a laundromat and do this bag of diapers that was on the top of the car so we could have them for the next day. As a matter of fact, in one town, we checked in, and the motel owner recognized us, and he called somebody from the local paper, in some little town, like Little America, Wyoming, or someplace. And he called the hotel, and he said, I'd like to interview you for the local paper. And I said, well, we're just going to be here tonight. I said, I really don't have any time. If you'll meet me at the laundromat at 10 o'clock, I'll talk to you there. And he did. He came to the laundromat, and I was doing the diapers and gave him the interview.
Oh, that's great.
Well, you just had to survive those days, you know.
But you were the first of the modern daddies.
Well, I don't know about that.
I think that's any man who touches that stuff, I'm proud of him. No, most of them just go, don't do that stuff. They just want to have the fun.
Well, I was
wanna
real
do any of
happy
the
to have
work.
him with me, because otherwise I would have been out there alone 11 months a year.
Are the kids normal? Did they survive
Yeah,
all
they're
that?
fine. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I mean, I can't even imagine raising 4 kids on the
Well, we didn't
road.
raise them. I mean, the oldest
Yeah, it
one
was-
was like 6 when it was
was
over.
over.
So, you know, she started school, and they had a relatively normal life.
Yeah. Now, George, what happened to you? You left the series, what, the last season? Second to last season?
Yeah, just before that, we were in Austin, Texas, and we were shooting a thing called Even Stones Have Eyes with Barbara Barry, and she was blind. And I was temporarily blind, and it was 4 o'clock in the morning. We had to go into the water to get her. I had to go in. It was like 17 degrees, and they had a wetsuit for her and a wetsuit for me. And they put the wetsuit on her and the coat over her, and then when they put the wetsuit on me, they couldn't get my trousers over the wetsuit. So they asked me if I'd go in the water just with my clothes on, which I did. So I came out and the jacket froze on me, and I remember they poured hot water on me. It's all on film, you can see it.
Oh, my God.
I caught like a bad cold, and at 6 o'clock in the morning, they sent a doctor over to give me a shot of B12, and that's where it was.
What happened? You got...
Well, I went across the country then and had everybody inoculated from Texas to where we ended up in Catalina.
What did you get something from the B12 shot?
Hepatitis.
Hepatitis, which
So
is...
I was in the hospital a month. I came back to work too early. I had a relapse and had to leave the show. That was that.
How long did it take you to recuperate from that?
3 years.
Because that's really brutal, isn't
Yeah.
it, hepatitis, when it's bad?
Well, yeah, it was an ugly time in my life because all of the people that were representing me at that point thought I was dying, and and they were writing checks on my account, things like that.
Oh, not.
Do you remember the picture Zorba the Greek?
Yeah?
You remember when the woman is dying and all the people are coming in and that's the way it was.
Oh, my God, that's
I know.
horrible. On that happy note, you know, it's interesting. When we put this show together, and I said, let's do a reunion of all my favorite, the guys that I had crushes on when I was, you know, my favorite TV shows, they all, like, overlapped in time. There was a period there where I was extremely horny. But, I mean, it's interesting, they all ran. Do you guys all know each other?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Eddie Burns used to come to a health food store I used to work in. This is like...
When you were babies?
Yeah, 1955, whatever the hell it was. But you say you used to be horny?
Well, no, I mean, I was a horny teenager. No, I'm still very horny.
That's what I thought, yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like riding a bike, you know?
Yeah,
You don't forget.
I had that.
So these guys are friends of yours?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to bring them out now. They were Stu Bailey and Kooky, and I will never forget them. It was a show that debuted in 1958. It was called 77 Sunset Strip. If you don't remember it, ladies and gentlemen, here are Ed Burns and Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. You're turning into a semi-regular here. Don't go away, because when we come back, we're going to see which one of these two had to get booted out of Yale before he tried acting. And later, you're going to meet the heartthrob of millions of teenage girls, including moi from The Rifleman. Johnny Crawford will join us a little bit later. We'll be back.
Look, we've got about $30 we can invest.
We might have, after we get paid.
Well, why don't we buy a Geiger counter?
Oh, you've really got the bug, haven't you?
Yeah.
Camera on the hood? I would have been even more impressed if I had known you guys were actually on the road doing all of that with a station wagon.
Just where you saw it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Even more impressed.
A lot of problems filming it. Sound-wise, sun-wise,
But-
a lot of problems.
Oh, it was
was that
worth
really us?
It was worth it. Yeah.
Was that really us?
Oh, you guys look terrific. Welcome back. This is some of my most favorite guys from television. From Route 66, Martin Milner and George Maharis are here. From 77 Sunset Strip, Kooky, Ed Burns, and Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. are here now. And you guys, how did 77 Sunset Strip come about? Now, I was reading that you said you didn't want to do TV.
No, I didn't. By the way, before we get into that, we were the exact opposite of them. We never left the Warners lot. Not once.
You didn't go up there on Sunset
We
to
never went, well, once a
Dino's
year. We had drive-ins at Dino's. We'd put different clothes on us, you know. And we'd
Oh, and you just do 97
and then
driving
throughout the rest
scenes.
of the year, say, no, you got the brown suit on you, that kind of thing.
Oh, God.
But we never left the lot. We were all over the world, you know.
Yeah.
We never got away from Warner Brothers.
Yeah. How did that happen?
Ephraim and I did a movie together called Girl on the Run. It was a feature film, and Ephraim played Stuart Bailey, and I played a killer, professional killer looking for this woman, and they had this theme song going for me all the time. And the character was kind of like the Kooky character, but he was a professional killer. And Ephraim and I went to the sneak preview, and all of a sudden, after we started walking out of the theater, we both started getting mobbed. Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
And then the executives at Warner Brothers were there, and they decided, gee, that Ephraim and I was such a good combination, let's create a television series for them.
But you know what was interesting was that the night he was supposed to kill his girl, he stops in at a bar, and he's a killer. I mean, he's on his way to murder this girl, and he stops in at a bar, and the bar had a mirror across the whole back of the bar, you know, and he's sitting there with his drink, and he takes a comb out, and he kind of does, you know, and there's a very sinister moment. He's going to kill a girl, and he's combing his hair, you know, kind of touching it up. Well, when they did the series,
suits at Warner Brothers
they
went,
kept
wait a
the
minute,
comb.
hook. It's a hook.
Do you guys remember
We
what
love
the
it.
budget was for that hour show?
yes, 60,000.
Yeah.
60,000 per episode you spent on those.
Yeah. They spent that on sushi now.
I know. What would it cost to make one episode now?
$500,000.
Because we were calculating one day, you couldn't even do a Burnett show now. You couldn't even do it.
Yeah,
One of
I'm
those
sure,
shows.
I'm sure.
Because of the budgets. How did you guys all start acting? How did you start acting?
Just
Because you
bad
seem to
luck.
me like you should be a banker or something.
Didn't
Well,
want
I
to work
wasn't
for a
fit, I
living.
wasn't fit to do anything else. That's really how I got into acting.
What happened? Now, are you the one that got kicked out of school?
No, someone might be listening. Vicki,
Nah, nobody's listening.
I didn't get kicked out. I got kicked out twice.
Good for
Yeah.
you. There's hope for my son yet. So tell me what happened. You got kicked out of Yale?
Yeah, I didn't work. I just didn't do any work. I just had a good time, and you know, so when it came time to get a job, I really wasn't fit to do an honest day's work. So acting seemed like the natural.
What better to do if you're an idiot?
That's right.
That's what I keep
You
telling
don't
my
need
son.
brains. In fact, they get in the way.
Uh-huh. So that's it.
That's it.
Where'd you go? Did you go to acting school?
I did for a year, yeah. And then I got drafted, and I had a couple of little tiny things around the fringes of the theater, you know, like a bit part in a like a crowd. I made crowd noises on a television show, that kind of thing. I was drafted. I went in the Army. I was in 5 years, and on my card it said actor. You know, and everyone would say, "Oh, what did you do in a theater or something?" And I'd say, "A little television, little, you know." And for 5 years, I couldn't improve on it.
Yeah?
I couldn't, you know, I was stuck there because, you know, it was terrible.
How did you get into acting?
Well, I hated school, Vicki, as
there's
a
a pattern
teenager.
here,
I
isn't
hated
there?
school, and I used to play hooky all the time, and I'd go to the movies. And I'd go to 3 movies a day all the time. And in fact, somebody reminded me the other day when I was telling him I dropped out of school when I was about 16. George has known me for a long time. I used to go into the George.
Well, you were talking about this.
He used to work at a place called the Salad Bowl in Manhattan on Broadway, and we used to go in. He was an aspiring actor.
7th Avenue.
7th Avenue, and I'd go in and I'd have my carrot juice. I was drinking carrot juice, or we were before, you know, it even became fashionable. But anyway, I played hooky, and I'd go to the movies all the time, and somebody said to me, you know, Ed, you were really in school all the time, in the movies, watching these actors. And I thought, you know, this would be a great way to make a living. You know, watch these guys.
You just sat there all day and watched the movies over
Yeah,
and over.
I'd go see a movie, see it maybe 5 times, and know all the dialogue, know the scenes, and then I'd go home and, you know, run them on a tape recorder maybe with a friend of mine, and we'd rehearse the scenes. And
How about
got into it like that.
laughs on the shows? Practical jokes? Did you guys play practical jokes?
Yeah, Marty played a lot of
Yes,
practical jokes.
yes. Well, you'd get so bored and so
Yeah.
tired that you'd do anything to relieve the tension and have a little fun. And so
I was more serious about my work.
That's true.
You're an artist, a serious artist.
in those days, you could. There was a kind of a lightness about it.
But also, we were doing a show where there was no network people there. I mean,
No,
I know, isn't that great? The censors
wonderful.
don't want to travel
There
with
was
you.
nobody looking at their watch and telling us how to do things.
Now, what about you guys? You, Roger Smith, the 3 of you, you had to laugh hysterically at some of those scripts and
I'll
stuff,
never
didn't you?
forget. We had a show
I mean-
where the writer was trying very diligently to set up the fact that the girl was an amnesia victim. So she comes in at the beginning of the show, and she had worked for us before, and she's behaving strangely. So I said, "Well, come into the office." And the director was a lovely guy, had no sense of humor at all. I mean, absolutely none. And Roger and I think Eddie, the 3 of us, were on the verge of breaking up every single scene we had. I mean, we were just fighting to stay, to stay honest.
together.
So she comes in and sits down, and I say, "Now tell me, what's the thing?" And she says, "Well, and Roger has come in, and to join us. And she says, "Well, last night I killed a man." And Roger's next line is, not, "You what?" His next line is, "Last night." Because the author is trying to set up the fact that that there was a memory lapse there,
right.
you see. It wasn't last night. So he wrote this, and Roger couldn't say it. He just couldn't say it. I mean, he'd break up. And finally, the only way he could get it out was by tying his shoes during the line. He said, "Last night,"
Well, Roger and Ephraim could not do a scene together. They would have to
we
look.
couldn't.
You're like
because
Harvey
they
and
start
Tim on the
laughing.
Burnett
start
show.
laughing.
And
Yeah.
I could do a scene with Ephraim, but I couldn't do one with Roger because every time we'd look at each other, we'd start laughing. And I guess this happens after you work together. For about 5 years,
Yes.
you know each other so
Yeah, it
well
doesn't take
that you can't
anything.
play a scene. And once you start laughing, I mean, they have to
it's
close down
once you
everything.
start, you
they
forget it.
start the giggles.
Yes, I
So-
know.
particularly
We were
when the
on
director
the
had
road,
no
so
sense
the way
of
we
humor.
used to communicate with the people back at the set was, remember the time we were in, with the baby?
Oh, in New Mexico.
Is that where it was?
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
And at the end of the scene, when the scene was over, we'd drop the baby and stomp on it.
Oh, you
And
guys.
of course, we wouldn't say anything. They wouldn't cut. And then when they saw it in the rushes, is the way we would communicate with them and have jokes.
All those
Hey, you send that clip back to the
Right,
censors.
exactly, right.
We do have
To
to
the
take a
censors,
break
yeah.
right now, but before we do, I want to quickly bring out the man who made my little heart flutter every time he yelled, "Hey, Pa." He played the son of Chuck Connors on The Rifleman for 5 seasons, starting in 1958. Please welcome Johnny Crawford. Stay put, because next we're going to hear why working with Chuck Connors was like living on the edge, and later you're going to find out which one of my favorite TV men is still crooning tunes, and he's going to show you himself. We'll be back. These guys will sell you anything.
They're America's best-known commercial stars.
Please don't squeeze the talk show host.
Mr. Whipple, Mother Nature, A Great Pair of Legs, and Little Caesar's Little Old Lady.
Not bad for 88, huh?
Meet the zany people
A margarine addict.
behind those familiar faces
Squeeze these and tell me if they're Charmin.
on the next Vicki.
Such a little cute face. Welcome back with my favorite TV men from Route 66, Martin Milner and George Maharis. From 77 Sunset Strip, Ed Burns and Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. And here from The Rifleman now is Johnny Crawford. Gosh, what a trip down memory lane this is. You started as a Mouseketeer.
I did.
I don't think I knew that.
Actually, that was my first comeback.
Your first comeback?
I was working extra and doing bit parts in Hollywood, and I played a refugee in a film very early on and wouldn't give back the candy after the first take that Loretta Young or somebody had given us, and so I was blacklisted for a while.
You were a rotten Mouseketeer then, huh?
Well, we were all kind of mischievous. You know, they had trouble keeping us in control while we were doing that show because there were so many of us. When they started out, they had 24 Mouseketeers, and that was the first season. I remember the first day, June 12th, 1955, because that was the first time I saw Annette. And there were so many of us, we'd run crazy during the day. We'd have 3 hours of schooling, and then we would take off. It was a great studio to work at. There were wonderful things to see and visit, and finally they got smart, and they would lock us in a projection room and show us cartoons.
Keep you occupied. How'd the Rifleman come about?
Well, I was working, freelancing after they dropped my option on the Mickey Mouse Club.
Gosh, how old were you when they did that?
Well, they had 24 Mouseketeers to begin with. They decided that was more than they could handle, so they let the unruliest ones go. And
when you were how old?
I was 9.
Oh,
so,
what a blow.
Yeah, well, I'd had to fight my way back before, so I just started going out on job interviews right away, and I started landing jobs.
Did you have parents?
Oh, yes. Huh?
You sound like you've been a little entrepreneurial type since you were... So I started out on those job interviews and...
Well, my parents weren't that ambitious for my acting career. They wanted me to have a normal life and go to school, and I didn't want to be normal at all.
Normal.
No.
What's normal?
But,
what did they want you to grow up to be?
Gosh, I never asked them. I was too busy learning songs. And...
Okay, so now Rifleman happened how?
Well, it was another interview after school. My mother picked me up out in front of the school on Sharamoya. I went to Sharamoya Public Grammar School, and she would pick me up after school in the old 52 Rambler and have a wardrobe for me in the back seat. We'd go to an interview at one of the studios. And I was working quite a bit in the couple of years after the Mouseketeers, playing refugees, starving, very depressed children usually. Because I was kind of depressed, you know, having lost my job with the Mouseketeers. And so it was a natural thing for me to go into those kinds of roles. But I wanted to do Westerns more than anything because I loved horses and I loved playing cowboys and Indians. But I had a hard time getting Western jobs because they didn't think I was the Western type. I don't know why, but I finally landed a couple of Westerns, and when I found out that we were going on a job interview for a Western after school that particular day in 1958, I was very excited, and she had some clothes for me back, and it was an episode of Zane Grey Theater, the first episode, the pilot.
Yeah, I didn't know this, and I didn't know that Sam Peckinpah wrote it.
That's right, yeah. And he directed about, I don't know, maybe half a dozen of the first episodes.
I didn't know any of this. What was your first impression of Chuck Connors? Frightening?
Well, he was awfully large. I remember thinking, well, this guy is tall.
And kind of sinister looking when he wants to be, yeah?
I was very impressed with him in a film called The Big Country, which came out in 1958. And I thought, I went to see that just before we started shooting The Rifleman, knowing that he was going to play my father. And I thought, can't believe they're casting this awful, mean guy as my pa.
What was your relationship like with him?
Well, it was terrific. He was a wonderful guy, very colorful, very unusual. He was a lot of fun to work with.
A joker, was he?
Oh, yes. He was a great sense of humor. He loved doing jokes as well as telling them. And
like what kind of joke? Was he a practical joker?
Oh, yeah.
What did he do?
Well, he was always instigating something on the set after a take or something to upset the producers. But I don't know, he would do crazy stuff. He had a very Irish kind of a temper, and you never knew whether he was joking or for real. It was very frightening. He was bigger than life, and everybody was a little afraid of him. And he would sometimes lose his temper at the rifle because the rifle would jam often because he was firing it so fast the bullets would swell inside the chamber. And when that happened, you know, you had to stand clear because he would take the rifle sometimes and he could, you know, he was a baseball player.
Yeah.
And he could throw a ball pretty good. He could also throw the rifle pretty good. And I always was very impressed with him. I admired him a great deal. I also admired the guy they hired to catch the rifle on the other side of the barn.
Oh, really? Hey, good deal. Hey, you know what I was going to ask you? Was it mandatory when these shows were on the air that everybody had to have a musical career? Because you all had to have the musical thing, didn't
Not
you?
me.
No? They didn't make you cut a record?
They tried for a year.
Don't they do that to everybody?
I was so bad they gave up.
Well, I mean, like 1962 was your big year, right?
Yeah.
Did you have a biggest year, Ed?
Biggest year? I think it's going to be 1994.
I mean, as a teen idol.
Oh, as a
teen
teen-
idol, cutting the records.
Well, let's see. The show was really gaining a lot of popularity in 1959, and I made a record, actually. They talked me into it, and that sold a couple of million copies. I wasn't going to mention the name, but...
Lend me your coat. That was Connie Stevens, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then I had a hit movie out, a Western with Clint Walker called Yellowstone Kelly. So I was on a hit record, a million-seller record, a hit movie, and a hit series with my dear friend Ephraim here. And so I had three things going at once, of course, and then...
Well, we must talk about all the
No, it's
bimbos
fun.
chasing you, because there must be great bimbo stories. Stay right here, because we have an amazing story to tell about one of our guests, and our audience is primed to ask some really nosy questions of my favorite TV men. We'll be back.
Put your hand there. That's the spirit. You're my best pupil. Now, this is where we turn it on. And if it starts ticking, you're in.
Welcome back with some of my very favorite TV guys from Route 66, Marty Milner, George Maharis, from 77 Sunset Strip, Ed Burns, Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., and from The Rifleman, Johnny Crawford. Who's got questions? Put your hands up so I can see you. Where are you? Yeah, stand up.
Hi.
Hi.
I'd like to know if Martin and George particularly, or the rest of you, had any really unusual jobs before acting.
Oh, the salad days.
Yes, I've done everything.
You've done everything?
Yeah, I've been. I worked in a shipyard, and I think the worst job I ever had, I worked as a short order chef at Penn Station, and I didn't know anything about cooking.
God,
So
what a horrible
they'd say like, we want a Western omelet, and I'd say, which one? And they'd say the one with the cheese and the ham and the peppers. That's how I knew what to put in it.
You're Greek, aren't you? Is Maharis Greek?
Correct.
You're
Well,
supposed to know how to cook, hon.
Greek food, sweetheart.
Oh, okay. That's okay with me. Come on over.
right.
Odd jobs? Anybody else have
Well, I
any really
did.
weird?
I started in a children's theater in Seattle when I was about 11.
You started really young.
Yeah,
didn't
and
you?
I was pretty much making a living by the time I was 14, so I was fortunate I never had to do anything else.
Yeah. Adam 12 was also a really long run.
Yeah, it ran
series.
almost twice as long as Route 66.
Yeah. And was Jack Webb responsible for that show?
He was, yes.
Because you guys were very dear friends, yes?
We just, Kent McCord and I, just 10 days ago, were in Orlando, Florida, and we were proud enough to make the presentation putting Jack Webb into the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And it was a great thrill for us. He died 11 years ago this month, and we all miss him.
Was he just like...
Was he just like he, was he just...
His
was he
private
Mr. Dragnet?
persona was exactly like his public persona, except there was this huge, soft, warm spot that nobody ever saw unless you knew him well.
Yeah. Who's got the memories of Steve McQueen?
I did.
Oh, is this Dish?
No, we used to pal around together before.
Did you?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I taught him how to drive a motorcycle. He bought
Did
my
you really?
motorcycle, yeah.
No kidding.
When I met him, he was driving a MG, little car. And we hitchhiked up once to Laconia, New Hampshire, to get it. And I was in a motorcycle, and I taught him how to drive, and then I finally sold him my motorcycle because I needed the money.
No kidding.
So then he took that and did Great Escape with it.
Who had a question up here? Yes. Stand up. That was your motorcycle in the Great Escape?
No.
Oh.
This is for Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. I understand you had a birthday the other day. Would you care to tell how you celebrated and how old? I do know the
What
years.
a rude question. Huh? That is a very rude question, and you don't need to answer if you don't want. However, whatever age you are, you look fabulous.
Well, thank you.
Woo!
I'd love to answer it, but I'm not allowed to.
Oh, her grandmother's available now. Are you happily married? Where's Grandma?
She's dying.
Are you dying here?
I've been a fan for a long time.
Yeah. Where'd the name Ephraim come from?
My father. My father was named Ephraim. I'm Junior. My son is the third, and his son is the fourth.
There's all these Ephraims?
His father was very famous.
Yeah. We have no imagination in my family.
It must get very confusing at
Now, I
Thanksgiving,
have a daughter
too.
called Stephanie, but
You
she's the
do.
5th Stephanie in a row.
Oh, this is really
Her
confusing
mother,
at
her
Thanksgiving.
grandmother, her great-grandmother, her were all Loranda Stephanie.
Ah.
So we really don't know what to
You
call
guys
our
are
children.
stuck in a rut.
Well, if you have a name like Zimbalist, what can you call anybody except Ephraim? I mean,
We're going to take a break, but we'll more questions when we come back. These are the people who make your kids say, Mommy, buy me this, buy me that, until you have to smack them. Yes, meet America's most popular commercial stars on the next Vicki.
Hello, and welcome to 1951, a year to remember. I'm Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., and we're about to take a trip into the fabulous past. We'll meet the world's movers and shakers face to face. We'll hear the words, speeches, and opinions of the times. And we'll be eyewitnesses to some of the greatest moments in history.
Crushes on all you guys. You still got that great voice. Now, this is a new show we should talk about, yes?
Yes, it's a series called A Year to Remember, as you can
That's
tell.
what it said. You're absolutely right.
Based on British Pathé newsreel film that goes back to the 1890s. They have a century of newsreel film. And this show, it takes a year at a time. Each show is a year.
Uh-huh.
And we'll all film during that year that's, you know, has to...
Terrific.
The high points of the year.
Where's this going to be, this show?
It's, you mean in the U.S.?
Where will we see it?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know?
I don't know where it's going to be on here, but it's already on in the rest of the world. So I don't know yet where they're going to do it in the U.S., whether it'll be syndicated or network or
we'll watch
cable
for
or
it.
what it'll be.
Oh, Mr. Crawford, you are now together with your high school sweetheart?
Yes.
How cool. Where is she here?
She's right there.
Is she in on
Charlotte.
this?
Charlotte. Yes.
Well, hi,
Charlotte from South Dakota.
You guys went to high school in South Dakota?
No, we went to high school at Hollywood High School.
Oh, Hollywood High School. Yeah. Now, how did you, and you're together after how many years apart?
Well, we hadn't seen each other for 27 years, and she called me one day. I hadn't heard her voice in 27 years, and well, as soon as I heard her voice, and her nickname is Tinker, and she said, "This is Tinker."
Tinker?
It brought back all the feelings that I remembered having at that time. It's amazing, the sound of her voice.
So is this like a serious sort of a thing?
Yeah, we've been together
Tinker?
for 3 years now.
Is this serious?
This is very serious.
Fun. Now, Mr. Zimbalist, I know that you are a big golf nut. And being the silly show that we are, we happen to find a golf clip of you from the Mike Douglas show. This is from God, I don't know what this is. 58. 78. Oh, good. Let's look at this.
You're sure your insurance is all paid up?
Well, it's all paid up, but I don't think it'll take me after this. You promise not to take a divot?
No, don't worry about it. If I ever take a divot, I'll always replace it.
That's nice.
Do you remember this?
I do now. I haven't.
God, I think I would block this from my memory. Thank you. No. Oh, my gosh. Well, now we know where your love of the game came
Well,
from.
now I know what happened to my brains.
I guess so. Marty, you have a fishing show?
I have two, actually. I have the best job in the whole world. I'm a talk show host.
Are you a fisherman?
Yes, I am. We have one show that's on Extra Sports in San Diego, a big 50,000-watt station that covers Southern California. And then my partner, Pete Gray, and I have another show that's syndicated on satellite all over the western part of the United States. And it's a call-in show, and we only talk about fishing. If you're not a fisherman, you're not interested in our show.
No kidding.
Where's the best job I ever had. Sorry,
where's
George.
the coolest place? Where's your favorite place you've ever been fishing?
Well, I've been to Argentina and Chile and Russia and Costa Rica. I've been all over the world fishing, and one of my favorites, I'm going next week, is right here in northern Arizona. So I fish all over the world.
Yeah?
Gosh, my wife would love to go with you. She's an avid fisherman.
Well, perhaps we could fix the two of them up. And, Lord knows, it could be a whole... Now, who's got questions out here? Yeah, stand up.
Have you guys always had a desire to act? Like ever since you guys were little kids?
Oh, did you all know you were going to be actors?
I started out as a longshoreman before the Musketeers.
But wait, now after the Rifleman, you went off and did the rodeo, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I guess I was sort of a method actor. I wanted to be a real cowboy after the show. And in fact, I gave up my dancing for a while, too. I figured cowboys didn't tap dance. And
You're so funny. What were you going to
unless
be,
they were
George?
being
What did you
shy.
think you were going to be when you grew up?
I don't know. I didn't start acting till I was 25. And I was on, when we were on Route 66, I was 33.
Wow.
Everybody thought I was a lot younger, but I didn't say anything.
It's that Greek skin, hon. That's what it is. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear which one of our men is still singing after all these years. And in fact, he's going to show us next.
They warned us, don't squeeze the Charmin. You can't fool Mother Nature. But did we listen? You bet we did. Meet the unforgettable stars of your favorite TV commercials on the next Vicki.
Oh, we're cruising down TV memory lane today. And Ephraim and Ed, there are a number of people out here that have asked about Roger Smith. And so I thought maybe I would ask quickly, is he well?
Well, I think he has a chronic ailment, but I think that he's been in remission. The last time I saw him, he looked absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I think he's holding his own.
Yeah,
That's
I saw him
good.
about a year ago. He was fine.
Good.
Yeah.
Tell me about the worst thing about being a teen idol, or the craziest
The
thing.
worst thing?
Maybe the craziest thing that ever happened to you.
Well, no privacy. You know, having to go into back doors at restaurants, side
No,
doors
the
and
worst
stuff.
thing was
What?
getting no money for it.
Getting no money.
But none of us had any money.
Well, that's a whole different subject, that money in the 60s as compared to now. No residuals,
Yeah,
nothing,
yeah.
right?
Warner Brothers owes me big time. Big time. And one day I'll get even.
Which one of you cut a record and then they said that you owed them for it? I love that story.
Ephraim owed them $600.
Well,
$700.
You mustn't
I
ever
like
sing,
to match that
huh?
against these million platter people, you know, and they tell me they're trying. I tell them that I got a bill from Warner's at the end for my show.
Perfect.
Production cost.
Perfect. Isn't showbiz great? Now, Johnny, you're still singing.
Yes.
What are you doing?
Well, I have an orchestra I call the 1928 Society Dance Orchestra, and also I've just joined forces with San Francisco's Prince of Pianists, Peter Minton, and he and I are doing dates together, just the two of us, doing songs of the 20s and 30s.
Now, what's with the
which we're very
fascination?
passionate about.
Fascination with the 20s?
Well, it's just wonderful. The popular music of the 20s and 30s was just wonderfully infectious, optimistic, romantic, imaginative, creative music. It was really, I think, the peak of songwriting, as far as I'm concerned, especially for Tin Pan Alley, because right at the, between 28 and 32, there were so many medias for songwriters that they were writing for Broadway, radio, which was a new thing, and
There's some great old songs. I was just curious how you got into it. Now, you have a new CD.
we're just about finished with a new CD, Peter and I.
And you're going to sing for us now?
And we're going to do a song for you from the CD, a song that was introduced in 1929, and the words were written by Nacio Herb Brown, a terrific songwriter,
Yes.
and the song was sung in a film called Broadway Melody to Anita Page, who is a very good friend of ours and comes to see us, and we'd like to dedicate this to
Let
her.
me give you an official introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, singing You Were Meant for Me, here is Johnny Crawford.
Life was a song, you came along. I laid awake the whole night through. If I but dared to think you cared, this is what I'd say to you. You were meant for me, and I was meant for you. Nature patterned you, and when she was done, all the sweet things rolled into one. You're like a plaintive melody that never sets me free. Oh, but I'm content. The angels must have sent you, and they meant you just for me.
How can you sit still when music like this is playing? I just can't keep my feet from moving. Peter Minton.
You were meant for me. Oh, and I was meant for you. Nature patterned you, and when she was done, you were all the sweet things rolled into one. You're like a plaintive melody, oh, that never sets me free. But I'm content. The angels must have sent you, and they meant you just for me.
We'll be right back for a last word with all of our favorite men right after this. I love all these little children out here who have no idea what we've been talking about for the last hour. But hey, it's been fun for me. I would like to thank all of my guests, Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., who will be hosting A Year to Remember, Ed Burns, who will be starring in the new Burke's Law, Cool Beans, and Johnny Crawford, look for his new CD. Martin Miller is now hosting his own syndicated fishing show, and George Maheras, thank you all so much for being here. It was really fun. I want to also thank KEYC in Mankato, Minnesota, KREM in Spokane, Washington, and everyone for watching. We love you. Bye. Have a great day.
Thank you, I'm Magnus. If you like what I'm wearing, kids, go get it there.
Has the romance gone out of your relationship? Find out how to rekindle that fiery passion on Rolanda, next on Channel 5.